In 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter uncovered tomb KV62, buried deep in Egypt's Valley of the Kings. Unlike the vast majority of royal burials that were looted in antiquity, this tomb remained largely intact. It had been shielded for millennia by tons of rock and debris from a later tomb constructed directly above it. Inside, Carter's team found a staggering display of wealth. The pharaoh's remains were housed inside a set of 3 nested coffins, with the final, innermost layer forged from 110 kilograms of solid gold. Placed directly over the mummy's head and shoulders was a 10-kilogram death mask, intricately inlaid with lapis lazuli and quartz. The sheer volume of this treasure instantly launched a global obsession. The public quickly elevated the young pharaoh to the status of a flawless, immortal god-king, building an entire modern mythology filled with ancient curses and whispered rumors of royal assassinations. But the glittering artifacts acted as a blinding facade. They captivated the world for nearly a century while completely obscuring the biological reality of the person buried underneath. Looking at the physical remains, the pristine image vanishes. Compared to other royal mummies from the exact same era, Tutankhamun's body is in remarkably poor condition. The first major layer of damage actually occurred during the ancient mummification process itself. The embalmers applied massive quantities of sacred oils and excessive resins to the body. This diagram illustrates how those heavy liquids seeped into the organic fibers. Over centuries, the resins triggered a chemical reaction, essentially a slow combustion, that eventually charred the linen wrappings and the skin completely black. The second major source of destruction came from the modern era, specifically during Howard Carter's initial autopsy of the remains in 1925. Because those ancient resins had hardened like glue inside the solid gold coffin, Carter's team resorted to extreme measures. They applied high heat and chiseled the mummy loose by force, systematically snapping off limbs and heavily fracturing the torso in the process. The physical remains were severely compromised on 2 fronts. Ancient religious devotion burned the skin, and early 20th century archaeology's desperation to extract the gold shattered the bones. To bypass a century of physical damage, researchers eventually turned to modern forensic technology, utilizing high-resolution CT scans and a comprehensive DNA analysis in 2010. This model maps out his basic demographic profile. The data reveals the pharaoh was only 18 or 19 years old when he died, standing roughly 167 centimeters, or about 5'6". The scans highlighted distinct medical anomalies in the skull, pointing to a cleft palate. Moving down to the lower extremities, the imagery points to a severe mobility issue. The teenager suffered from a clubfoot, compounded by a rare bone degradation disorder, Kohler disease. This medical reality perfectly explains the large collection of walking canes found piled inside the tomb. He required them to stand upright, firmly debunking the popular image of an agile warrior leading troops into battle. For decades, the specific circumstances of his death were defined by speculation. Theories ranged from a fatal blow to the head to a calculated political assassination. The genetic testing proved otherwise. The DNA analysis detected multiple strains of a deadly malaria infection. Combined with a severe leg fracture that had become heavily infected, his weakened immune system simply shut down. The hard scientific evidence leaves no room for grand conspiracies. The most famous pharaoh in history was a chronically ill, disabled teenager who succumbed to an ordinary, devastating disease. When you look back at the golden death mask now, its context completely changes. It is a 10-kilogram idealized piece of metal lowered directly onto the shoulders of a frail, suffering boy. Because his biological remains are so degraded, he exists in a modern paradox. While other royal mummies have been safely transported to the new Grand Egyptian Museum in Cairo, Tutankhamun is too fragile to survive the trip. Instead, his original tomb has been retrofitted into a high-tech preservation site. He remains entirely isolated in KV62, resting inside a climate-controlled glass case designed to stop humidity and bacteria from destroying whatever is left. The ancient Egyptians tried to secure his immortality by burying him beneath thousands of pounds of imperishable gold. Today, modern science is securing his legacy through forensics and hard data. Ultimately, microscopic DNA strands found within the tomb provided the most significant insight. They finally allowed a forgotten teenager to tell his true story.